Oh, Gaijin. Okay, welcome back to War Thunder. Welcome aboard the M103 here in a top tier battle in one of the, on one of the not most desired maps in the game, 38th parallel. But the map has something going for it. And, you know, when you actually are too fast for the usual snipers, then you can get into a pretty darn good position. So the M103, battle rating 7.7 American heavy tank. Do I like it? Yes, I do. It was always a really great tank, and I do not play it enough. I do not feature it enough, and I can tell you one thing: the 7.7 battle rating bracket is really in this tank's favor compared to what it was before. So together with the mouse, IS-4, IS-3M, and to a certain degree the Conqueror, this tank has now again kind of regained one of its old glory, and it doesn't face too many ATGMs. It also profits from being in the American tech tree, so you don't have to face as many gimmick tanks as other nations have to face when facing the USA, and you somewhat can deal with the Soviet tanks in a better manner than other nations' tanks. Your mobility, well, you always are close to your top speed, which is limited to 33 kilometers an hour, which is not all that great. The tank is on paper relatively similar to the Conqueror, but the Conqueror, in my opinion, is one of the worst tanks in the game because the gun is just so bad, whereas the gun on the M103 is just so sweet, and the ammunition is so good. It begins with the high explosive shell, 120 millimeter of caliber, but 39 millimeters of penetration instead of your average 36 on the Russian 122 and also the German 128 millimeters. But those are, you know, details. It's getting interesting when we come to the heat shell. 380 millimeters of penetration, once the best round in the game, and then the stock shell. Solid shot. The IS-6 made here the mistake of unangling the lower plate by reversing down a slope, and I used it very efficiently. 303 millimeters of penetration and improved / buffed post penetration damage effect. I mean, if you don't believe me, ask this guy. Yeah, so 303 millimeters is around about the same penetration that you get on the APDS of all the L7 gun variants, featured on, for example, both German Leopards, then the STP-1, then also the British MBT, Vickers MBT, and also the Centurion Mark 10, and also the first M60. So, you know, this ammunition goes around. Funnily enough, you have better normalization. Yeah. You have 125 millimeters of penetration at 60 degrees of angle. Beautiful ammo rack here. Whereas, for example, the L7 has, I guess, 123. So, again, detail, but it's every millimeter that counts at 60 degrees of angle because you have to face a lot of the Soviet tanks. So you kind of are relatively close to the German 128 millimeter APHE. Beautiful ammo rack here on a camping object 120. I think they're not used to getting counter attacked or counter camped from their side by a heavy tank. So that's always a good feeling. Yeah, and you face the Soviets on such a regular basis that you can quite clearly say they are your main opponents. Easy as that. So, American 7.7, how is it? Well, it's where the stock grind really gets painful for the medium tank line. Stock grind on the M47 and also the M48 was always very, very painful. M60 not that bad, because you have somewhat useful stock ammunition, APDS, but it's still unreliable. But the way to the heat shell is always painful for the American medium tanks, and the American medium tanks need the heat shell. On the M103, it's an option, let's call it that way, because the stock shell is that good. The post penetration effect, the pure caliber, the pure penetration, reliability. I love it. When you shoot at somebody, you can somewhat predict the results, unlike on the L7 gun that just goes wild. The reload is the same as on the Conqueror. Again, both tanks are very similar, but I would take the M103 over the Conqueror anytime, any day of the week. It's just more mobile. The top speed is around about the same. Your frontal armor is just simply better. Your cupola isn't a weak spot. Your lower plate isn't a weak spot. Yes, you have a lot of weak spots, but the enemy has to know them, and they have to particularly aim for them, not just, you know, auto aim at something like the lower plate or something. And those were just 6 quick kills here on the 38th parallel. But as usual, you know, the second you go for an objective in something that is not a Russian tank, you are doomed to die despite trying to get into cover, despite looking around. There is always somebody that is camping harder than you, and Soviets just excel so hard at goddamn camping. And you think you're safe, you think you're in cover, but there is always another Object 120 that you have not killed yet. And they always ignite your ammunition. Always. So, that's it with this battle. And let's join another one here on Sinai, and I kind of like here the western spawn. It just gives me more option with the hunting ground. And one thing that I really have to say is I usually hit my targets quite reliably. So I insist on the solid shot, not because that it is for free or that I can't say that the heat shell is bad. In fact, it's pretty good as well. But I like to kill my opponents with a good old solid shot. The post-penetration effect is just so much better. In certain cases, it even surpasses APHE. Now, why is that? How does a solid shot work compared to an APHE? An APHE, for example, let's take the German 128mm Panzergranate, any variation of it, and you see, you need to have a certain armor thickness to activate the fuse. For the Germans, it's mostly 28mm, and that is really painful because against certain types of tanks, when you have their siders somewhat, you get over penetrations, so literally the shell goes through and doesn't explode. But you're used to aiming for the crew compartment, aiming for the middle, not for a specific part. So if then the shell doesn't go off, you just waste a lot of damage, so to speak. You could have shot for the engine or for the MREC or something like this. Speaking of engines, if you are behind an enemy, it is very, very good to shoot through the entirety of the tank, through the engine with a solid shot, but with the APHE you have to aim for the turret, because the APHE would explode in the engine and just set it on fire, whereas then you are suffering from quite a nasty reload on the German 128mm, and the enemy just can turn around with the turret and shoot back. For Sture Emil, that's very painful, but also for a Maus and a Jagdtiger, although both have armor, the latter one. So yeah, and I think the solid shot is really, really powerful, much more powerful in my opinion than the APDS. In certain cases the APDS is better when it comes to reload, for the L7 gun that is. In terms of reload, muzzle velocity, easy to aim, and in theory it should also work better against sloped armor, but it doesn't. I just think that the M58 cannon that is mounted on the M103 is so reliable and so deeply satisfying, together with the ammunition choice, of course. Let's have a look how it deals with the King Tiger from the rear. Oh, look at this damage effect. Let me just quickly talk you through. The shell bounced from the engine roof, entered the tank in the turret ring, and killed every crew member in the turret, and also the machine gunner, giving me a one shot like that. And it would have even happened in the same way when it would have shot through the entirety of the engine. The shell is just simply that powerful. And this is an annoying habit, because this tank was already dead. Gaijin, how should I know it? He was not blackened out, there was no smoke coming out of this. How should I know? I wasted a shot. Now in this situation I wasn't punished for it, nevertheless, it's just really annoying. And if somebody is watching that can change anything about this, this is an old issue in War Thunder ground forces. And here we actually misaimed a little bit, and I just hit the left side, but the damage to this Tiger 2 was also quite extensive. And we charge from the rear into B, because not a lot of people like to go into C. I mean, after you have killed the first wave, most people just don't want to go into C. And the second I said, of course somebody is capturing C, but most of the time nobody goes for there. So what is my plan? Well, I'm coming practically from the enemy's marching area, so to speak, and there is a Panther 2, and he was killed again a split second before I pulled the trigger, and there was no visible effect of the Panther 2 getting killed by the Conqueror. No smoke, no change in the visual model for me. This is again highly annoying. It happens relatively often with the M103, and then again, the reload is not the longest in the game. You know, IS4 mouse have longer, but still it's a bit of annoying. So I want to decap A, and then want to support a little bit my guys at A if I can from this position. This is a relatively good position. I also have to look around. Once the guy from C comes my way, I have to be prepared. So then again, that makes the situation a little bit not so good in that current situation. So I'm capturing B, and I'm looking around. So two of my buddies are on the sniper ridgeline area, so I guess I can turn my back to there and observe the other two entrances to this capture zone. Moving forwards and backwards just to be sure, and there is the door 217 incoming. I faked a little bit the way that I was moving, so that was why I was reversing, so that he aimed for my rear. Door 217, awesome bomber, love it. But it's not that good when it comes to correcting with your rudder. I got shot from the back. Where is he? Where is the enemy tank? Oh, there's an object. 109 and 120. I go for the object 120, and look at this damage effect. Once again, I will play it here in the zoomed in camera. The shell goes in on the side of the object 120 and shreds everything on its way, and even more, killing the commander, gunner and the loader, killing the track, radiator, fuel tank, cannon breech, horizontal turret drive. Everything that you want to have dead in a tank died on its way. And this is where the solid shot is sometimes stronger than an APHE, because an APHE has a limited blast radius. And I did experience it often enough that a magic Soviet gun breech absorbs all the shrapnels caused by the big APHE shell from the Germans, or also the Hori production or prototype, as you have seen in multiple of my videos, Mouse, E100, tank reviews on the prototype and the production of the Hori series. You name it. I just experienced it often enough. With this solid shot, it seems not to happen all that often. So with the object 120 on the object 906 stealth, I think it's time that we go to C and see how it's going. MiG-9 going with the main cannons after the M56 Scorpion. You know, this could have ended very tragically for the M56. It's open topped, every plane can easily kill it, and I get shredded from the rear by a tank that I have not seen. I mark him on the minimap and I nearly get around with the gun. Just hit the radiator and the fuel tank. That is interesting. Normally I should have killed him. He is burning quite nicely, and I can actually rotate with the turret with him and try to damage the gun breech with the machine guns, but I seem to not be able to do this, so that calls for a bigger solid shot. And this time it's hull break, because I hit an internal module. So the change is to the hull break mechanic. I actually like it, but that's about it. With this recording I had one problem. After this, not much more happened, but I went nearly into a situation where I could have come off better with a few more kills, but it was not to be. So I go again back into the capture zone and capture it. What happened was the following. I was recording, I was having the battle, and suddenly my game seemed to have crashed. But it didn't crash. There was an auto update and it kicked me out of the game. So far this has happened just twice in all of my over 4.5 years of playing War Thunder. Just think about this. Yeah. So I guess I end the video here. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening. Please give this video a like if you did. Subscribe if you want to see more. Let me know what you think about the stock grind on the American medium tanks and how the M103 in your opinion stacks up against. Do you prefer the solid shot or do you like the heat FS much more? Do you actually use the smoke shell? And what do you think about the armor and the survivability of this tank? I personally think it's great. Having said this, that's finally it. So give this video a like if you did, subscribe if you want to see more, and we'll see each other on the battlefields of War Thunder.